and we're with Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined by Space Tomato and Algared. How you guys doing today?
Hello. Doing good, dude. How you doing?
I'm doing well. What about you, Algared? How you doing?
Until 5 minutes ago, when technical issues started playing havoc with me, I was doing well.
Yeah, well, we were
As
giving
they
you shit for that. We had to restart the recording, by the way. But Algared sounded like a chipmunk. It was Algared and the Chipmunks. It was pretty bad. So
Helium Al.
yeah, Helium Al. He's sucking on something, that's for sure. Anyway, we had a good giggle. Maybe we'll. I should have recorded it and put it up on Patreon. It would have been funny. It would have been good. Anyway, what are we talking about today, Algared? Tell us what we're talking about.
Scanning.
Yeah.
The elusive thing that we all know is absolutely and utterly important for 90% of professions that are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 100%.
And
it's just a major thing.
I've dragged Space Tomato along kicking and screaming probably at this point. Yeah, we kind of going back to what we talked about at the start of the year when the three of us sat down and said, kind of what we're expecting this year, and really a lot of it has come to pass. And so we always go back to, every time we talk about scanning, we always go back to Space's video because he did a really good video on it years ago now, and so I want to bring him in for this one. So yeah,
Just like 4 or 5 years ago when they told us about it.
Yeah, but take the credit where it's due, man. It was a good video. It really was, and I still often when I talk about it, I always remember all the little infographics you did on it. So
give us a link to it, and we'll make sure we put it in the comments.
We'll put in the cards up there. So yeah, give us a link.
That's kind of the funny part is like back then I was doing all these custom animations for videos and stuff because I thought things were speeding up, and then I realized like this is way too much effort for these videos for this game. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
you're being a perfectionist and a content creator producing quality stuff.
Yeah,
it's having fun with it.
Yeah,
and having
but fun only goes so far.
All right, so I think we'll kind of kick this off. Why is because the thing we realized at the start of this year, right, is that there was foundational. I think that's the right word for it. Foundational pieces of tech, or also miniature gameplay that kind of goes across multiple gameplays. And the last episode we kind of did on this was the cargo system, right, where we talked about how cargo essentially touches everything. Well, it's the kind of the same thing around here because you've even at the most basic level of scanning. Every ship in the game, every vehicle, and on foot has a form of scanning, right? So it touches everything, right?
It's full of gameplay.
Yep. And so essentially, what we're kind of have realized, and you guys correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth here, that there are these foundational texts that are going to kind of come in to make things easier for them before they apply the more complicated gameplays on top, and we get all those different varieties. You've got this kind of like base one that kind of goes across multiple disciplines. Is that a good summary of how you two see it, or have I put words in your mouth?
Yeah, it's like there's normal scanning that everybody can do, but there's going to be particular types of scanning for different parts of gameplay. And the way I'm thinking it's going to, it won't be as big as something like 324's cargo changes, but we see how people are reacting to the way that cargo and inventory changes. It's a change that they've been talking about for years, probably regularly for years now. And when it finally drops, then people are like, oh, I hate this. And we'll have the same thing with scanning. They're going to drop in finally some change to scanning that means you can now detect certain things, that some ways you can be blocked from detecting those things and get surprised by somebody who's maybe running lower emissions or staying behind an object that blocks your view. Those kinds of things will be able to be used by players, and that's going to change how the scanning gameplay works, and it's going to drop in and people are going to say, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And, rinse and repeat.
Because he can find me all the time.
Yeah.
No, he's just using the right scanners.
Well, like we said at the start of the year, scanning is one of those core gameplay technologies to get that core loop in, that piracy, something of value, and then getting them, what do you call it? The mouse chasing the cat type of thing, around and around, which is that core
little herald in the middle of our screen here. Going around and around in a circle.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need that core little gameplay loop that everything else spirals off. And that's why I know specifically scanning's very important for that, because you can have that something of value. It doesn't necessarily need to be cargo, but yeah, to kick that off. And I think the other ones that we've kind of talked about before we recorded today's show was also Star Sim and Resource Management. So we might do another couple episodes on those ones as well. down the line. But as for scanning, Algared, what do you kind of think is kind of next once you get past the passive? Where do you think that they're going to go off into?
I think with the talk about jump points, I think, and certainly the transient jump points which will be coming, I think they'll actually wanted to look at the exploration aspect of scanning.
I think would we agree that exploration is the primary scanning gameplay? Would that be the right way to put that?
I think it's certainly the one that everyone sees as being the,
or at least the most obvious then.
And certainly once we get the transient jump points, that's certainly going to be the key area where we're going. And it was interesting listening to the Star Citizen Live when they were talking about, how will we find jump points? And they talked about, well, Explorer scanners will give you a lot more information. Not it's a radar signature you're picking up, but then the different scanners are going to pick up how, be able to pick up how long it is, how deep it is, how stable it is, how and so much more information. And then they pivoted and said, and the Carrack will be able to, as our flagship exploration, will be able to do that significantly better than others. So every ship would be able to use their radars to find it, but other ships with their scanners and radars tuned to a certain thing are going to be able to do it so much better. And I think that's the key thing.
I think the other thing that I'd hit on there that we talked a little bit about before the show, like you said there about the size of the jump point, the length of the tunnel and things like that. Now, they're important because obviously, well, the size tells you the ship that can go through it. But the length, I felt this was a really interesting part that you highlighted, was that it essentially could give you a thought to which system it could be going to. Essentially, the way I visualize it, and you correct me if I'm got it different to you, but I kind of went, well, if it's this long, I can then do the old circle thing like they used to do on the C maps and go, okay, so it'll hit this system over here, but not this one and not this one. So more than likely it's sending me to this system over here. That's where my brain went.
And that gives you that, do I go through this system where I could possibly end up in this Vandal system over here, or do I go... Or do I just sell the information and say, hey, there's a jump point that goes to a system?
Especially being transient, you don't know if you're not going to get back.
Well, they did talk about the time that they'd go, and they said, because that was one of the questions, is it just going to be a one-way trip? Is it just going to be... They said, well, we're thinking that they'll go in hours, so a time frame. So you get an idea of how long they'll last.
And because just to clarify, when you say hours... The first time you said that, I thought, what, it's going to take me 6 hours to get to the other side? You meant as in how long it will last. Yeah, I just want to clarify.
How long it'll last. Yeah. And I think that information, like that, I'd see that as a crucial bit of information. But if you're in your Aurora and you detect the jump point and you just go through it and you can't detect all that other information, you might miss out on that crucial bit. But it's a 1 hour jump and it's going to last for 1 hour before it disappears. As opposed to if you've got your Carrack and you go, oh, this is only going to last for an hour. You're right. Okay, let's go through, do a quick check and come back. But then if it's one that's is going to last a week or that, then you've got that aspect. And they talked about even being able to do events, dynamic events, where they say, hey, the jump point's out there. It's going to last for a week. And then you find it and then you start traveling, traversing the jump point. So you could see the way they're talking in terms of scanning, certainly for exploration, just in terms of jump points. Yeah, that's a huge. There was a whole lot of aspects that we hadn't thought of, I think, in the past.
I think it's the most obvious one, right? But even within scanning, I think you've got other ones that you can go into. I just want to I'm remembering an episode of Voyager, and I was sitting here thinking as myself as one of the writers on this show. Did you watch Voyager Space before I go down this rabbit hole?
No.
There was an episode. So there was an episode where they're in Voyager, right? And in Voyager, they were literally in another, like on the other side of the universe, right? And they found this wormhole that was like really tiny, like a micro wormhole, and they could get radio signals through it essentially, right? And they got a signal back from the other side, and they realized it was in their quadrant of the solar system that they were from. right? And they started talking to this guy, and they sent him a message, and then they found out that he was actually 20, like I can't even remember the number of years, but he was in the past, right? And so he agreed that when he got back and after they'd left, so like 20 years later, he would then contact Starfleet and let them know. And it turns out he dies before he could give them the message. But it was just an interesting thing. So I was going, all right, let's take that and relate it to Star System. Could we find a system, because you'd have to do it system wide, right? You couldn't just localize it, but could we actually have it that you go into an unknown transient wormhole into a system, and it turns out system's like 50 years in the past? And what you see what I mean? Because like it would
Like
be
time travel?
Yeah, essentially, because like think of the cool story implications you could do in that system where they didn't even know about the Vandal, or they had never met the Banu, and a Banu person comes into the systems, and all the interactions that they would then have with. Do you see what I mean? How interesting that would be from a story's perspective. And I know I've gone off on a tangent, but that just came to me. Yeah.
If it were doing standalone stories that weren't impacting the PU, then I could see that type of thing. But in terms of the PU, I think that would be a bit harder to kind of.
Well, that's why I said you'd have to localize the entire system to that time zone, and have something like where people can't come out of that, but you can go in and you can come out, but they can't come out, like the NPCs can't come out. But again, I'm creating problems, but it was just a cool idea.
Yep.
Anyway,
that would be cool if they could figure that out, but Jesus.
Yeah, I know it's hard to do time paradoxes. So yeah. Anyway, getting back to scanning. I'm sorry I completely derailed us, but it was just a cool thing that came into my head. So different types of scanners. The primary one, as you said, Algared, is exploration. Space. What other ones do you think that fall under exploration? What do you just give an example of what do you think if the Carrick going out and exploring space and finding jump points is like the most noticeable one, what other kind of exploration stuff are you looking forward to?
Well, I've been wrong really over the course of the years. I mean, I knew that they always talked about jump points as being something you could scan for, but
Haven't
that
we
was
all?
always yeah, I've been adamantly wrong, because people have been very obsessed with this idea of going into the game and discovering jump points. And up until they introduced transient jump points, obviously all we thought was going to be mainly the main jump points around the game. So my messaging was, hey, if you're getting into exploration, don't expect to discover jump points. Now, that does still sound like a possibility, but I think for the most part, exploration gameplay is going to be finding resources, derelict ships, derelict space stations, points of interest, things that other players want to exploit, surveying planetary and moon surfaces to continue to update the information of what resources are where for the local space station, so that people can come to the space station and buy that data. Because when we get to base building, people are going to want to build their bases where the resources are that they need. And you're not going to be able to get that data unless you scan the ground for it, or you update your maps based on the information they have. And they showed this in CitizenCon last year, that we could download maps. So I don't see why one of the main loops of exploration, as we call it, would be getting that sort of survey data of planets and then returning that to a station to, sell to the station, like we see at other space games. Things like Elite Dangerous already do stuff like this.
GDX.
And then that map data gets included in the data that people can then get from that space station or landing zone or whatever for the local moons.
And Space and X. Gee, what was that ship that they came out with? They once called a carrot killer.
Yeah, exactly.
What have we always believed that ship was?
Yeah.
We've always said it to us.
Ship.
It was a survey ship, a planetary survey ship.
Doing
exploration.
I was also just thinking, even on a more micro level, like almost like a starter exploring mission, those maps are going to need updating too. Like resources are going to change almost on a daily basis, but even then, think about areas of space where someone think about how Space Sim or Quanta will literally go, this place hasn't been updated in X, and starting player is doing X professions. Do you know where I'm going, right? And it basically then sends them over. Can you give us an updated map of this area, whether it be on foot or on a vehicle or in Terrapin, whatever ship, correct for ship for correct job. There's money in that.
There should be there should be some kind of decay rate to the data to
Absolutely.
say that, you scanned this stuff 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's good, but we're not going to pay you as much as if you scanned it yesterday. And I think that's what people need to start to accept as being a big part of exploration. You can't look at a game like Star Citizen and say, it's only 2 systems. Nobody's going to be able to explore anything. These moons and planets are freaking huge. They're massive.
I think you'd both agree with me. There are certain parts of this game where other games help you advise it, but there are also parts of where other games hinder your thought process. You go, I've played all these other games, it must be the same. And we know that there are things that are and that are not. So you've got to be able to. It's really hard to differentiate because you're essentially fighting your own brain, what you know, and your brain's always telling you correct. So yeah. The other one there that you kind of mentioned that I do want to talk about is, I think, if we move on from exploring, is data, because I actually think data is another one where it is inherently linked quite a bit. And I know you mentioned before, Space, the MSR, and obviously our little spinning one here, the Herald. Do either of you care to weigh in on how you think it will interact with data? And I know I'm asking you to speculate. I have time.
I think it ties in with things like mapping. So whenever you've got data, you're actually got to transport it. We know that data has to be transported via links.
Kind of like what Space was talking about with updating them, or I said updating the maps, but he said creating maps,
So you could either send it over the link and just have it, or you can send it by secure transport, which is at the present the only 2 ships we've really got that are designed for transferring the data are 3 ships. The Raven, the Herald, and the MSR. They're our 3 data running type ships.
And to link in with that, all the explorers do have some form of computers too, so that makes sense. Obviously, correct me if I think I'm wrong here, but essentially the data-driven ones just have bigger computer banks to hold more or multiple Heralds worth of data on. You get my point.
And of course, our favorite ship, the Endeavour, actually has a module for decrypting and encrypting data.
Don't say that. You'll give Space a heart attack. I'm going to ask a question. Are you a fan of the Endeavour, Space? Because we've never really done a deep dive with Endeavour on you. So yeah,
I think the Endeavour is cool.
Yeah, all right.
It's a cool idea for a ship, but just like with data running, I think with all these things that they bring into the game, you realize once they finally get to implementing it, they have to come up with the gameplay around it. And I think data running, they probably don't know fully what's going to encourage people to run data in certain ways.
Yeah, I'm kind of realizing that myself as a broader overview of all the gameplays. There's gameplays that they've hinted at, right? I'll give you a more obvious one, and it's related to the Endeavour: agriculture. Or science is another one. Like we know more about scanning, but we don't know all of it. And then we know there's 2 ships for science, but we don't know what that entails, all of it. And then agriculture, there's only the one. So does that mean we're going to get a whole bunch of farm ships down the line? Case in point, sorry. It's a tough one, is it not? You know what I mean? So again, there's a lot of things that have come out that has essentially been explained and things that have not been explained. And even if I look at data, like at the moment, data sounds like a digital version of cargo, right? And to talk about cross-pollination, which is also the episode that came out after we did the cargo one, right? And tying it all together. We called it tying all together, but what we really should have called it is the combination of gameplay, right? Because to me, scanning or data, right, as Algared has rightly pointed out, is one part exploration. The other part of it is hacking, right? Because you're going to want to try and steal it. You're going to try and protect it. You're going to want to try and sell it, right? And because it's digital information, so to speak, there's no weight to it. So the size of the information is like a file format size, but if you can put that on a USB stick, does it all of a sudden become physicalized? You get where I'm going.
The idea of transporting data, if the only risk you have is being hacked, then I don't know how realistic that would be to be flying around and there are 15 ships willing to hack you in your transit. Like how how do you build risk to data running without making it seem a little ham-fisted?
E-warfare. See, that's the other part of it. It starts to tie into e-warfare.
I-
They literally talked about a missile that could hit the side of your ship and then hack your ship.
Yeah, but again, how often are you going to just get pulled over by somebody with hacking missiles? Like, it's not the same as somebody interdicting you to try and steal your cargo.
But in a slightly linked way, tying in with your idea of that you were mentioning earlier, when you are going with your data, it's time sensitive, and so if you're delayed, your data loses value. So the risk for you is getting it quickly, taking that dangerous route to get it there in the shortest possible time to maximize your credits.
I did not even consider that until you said that, and that is really important. Because if you're the first person, ooh, you're going robot on me, Space.
Yep.
Give it a second. Yep. Try again.
What's the difference?
No, full robot.
Robot.
All right. Can you hear us okay or not? Just give me a nod or a shake your head. So you can hear us fine. Okay, we'll just give it a minute and see if it comes back. But what I was going to say is the time sensitive stuff, it basically means that you want to get to market before other people is what I was going to say. Try again, Space. See if we can go this time. You try talking again? Oh no, I think he's
muted as well.
No, he's playing with stuff in the background. He's trying to move it around to see if he can fix it. See if he comes back in a minute. Again.
Technical issues abound.
Yes.
Oh, is that about data? We've been hacked.
Yeah. Well, I even go into things, Algared, like can you split the data up and send it between multiple ships?
Yeah.
Like if they get half of it, they need to get all the pieces together. Like how secure can you be with this data? And again, I know we've moved from scanning the data, but you can start to see it goes back to that previous episode we did. There is definitely a combination of gameplays coming.
And to pick up, like, if we go back a step again and look at the exploration aspect in terms of looking for points of interest, our favourite ship, the Endeavour, with its telescope, identifies points of interest.
Yep.
You send other ships out, they explore the points of interest. And Star Citizen Live, when they were talking about exploration and the scanners that were going with jump points, they talked about, I'm excited because one of the things I want to do is actually develop those points of interest in the game. And that's what you need scanners and radars for. So even though we've got jump points, you can see the developers are actually already thinking, how does that apply? How does this application apply to other things we want to do? So
how am I doing?
Oh, much better. All right. Say what you were going to say, sir.
Well, I actually have a different thought now. And
go for it.
This is one that you see a lot of comments on. In fact, when I do surveys on my YouTube video or YouTube channel, a lot of people, their answers to what is the most exciting gameplay is exploration. And a lot of people will say something along the lines of like, exploration's just it's going to take such a long time. And you can already explore in this game.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not super deep, but you can go out there, you can find a good mining deposit, good quantanium deposit, which people are looking for. People want. It's hard to find quantanium. You can find that. You can.
Even when I played with you, man, we had someone in a scout ship out in front scanning to find the nodes while they were working on the previous one before we moved out to grab the next one. Case in point of what you're talking about. Yeah.
And you can be sitting in a server, go into global chat and say, hey, I've got this load. You'll probably make this much money from it. Who wants this? They pay you the money. You add them to your party. That's it. That's the exploration game loop. It's silly to me to say that there's not going to be exploration in this game for a while, because the only thing they need to do to take that from being a little workaround to officially game is markers on the map.
Markers on a map. You said that and then you went completely robot.
Yeah.
You've gone robot again. We're having connection issues today to Turkey. Yeah. It's fine.
And I think, like, not sure where space we're going to go before we went robot, but I can also see elements of that in the points of interest we've got in game already. So you go to the planets, not every outpost is listed. So there are places you can explore and look for and find. And so if you go and map the planet, you'll actually spot up the outposts or the abandoned places and the working places or the secure places. And so even in that aspect, we've still got exploration. And then you've got places like Bennyhenge or the Philosopher, the Ruin Javelin on Daymar.
Yep.
You've got all of those just points of interest where people just like to go and explore and see, and yet they are, in a sense, if you don't know where they are, you've got to explore and find them. So,
Well, I'll ask you this while we kind of see if Space is fixing his stuff, but I almost wonder if scanning. You talk about like, oh, well, not talk about, but like, we know the Endeavour finds a place of interest, and then it seems to be narrowed down. So you move into a carrack that finds the system, and then you move down into a survey ship, and it's kind of like this daisy chain effect. I almost wonder, say there's an Odyssey doing a survey of a planet, and it finds an outpost, and it can detects that there are relics there, and then so therefore a vehicle then goes in, or someone more that wants to find relics goes into that area.
Yeah.
Like can you scan an area and it's just higher of a certain percentage of something, and so it doesn't tell you what's there, it just gives you this kind of like broad overview percentage. And what I mean by that is you can kind of see a little bit about that, like at the moment when when you scan a rock for mining and it gives you the percentages of different resources, and that's kind of what's given me this potential idea of what scanning could be. Is it just a percentage number, and when number is up, big number, good, that type of caveman analogy.
Even just in terms of you scan an outpost and you get the architectural style.
Yep.
Because the architectural style will tell you kind of what period it's from. And if it's not from any of those periods, you go, hang on.
Well, again, I'm going to pick a really weird one. I'm going to say something like Egyptian. So it's Egyptian, and there's relics. Oh, that sounds like money. But if it's like, really, I don't know, cardboard boxes, relics, okay, I don't care, or whatever, you know what I mean? So you can also ascertain its worth, is what I'm trying to get at there.
I think part of the problem we have with scanning right now is also just the fact that you can't scan anything. Like, we can scan boxes and ships, but you can't identify caves. If there is an outpost that's unmarked on the planet surface, you can't scan that. You can't really find much. So I understand that angle in terms of there not being exploration. That's something that definitely they need to include with this new update to scanning that will get the 4th or 5th or 6th one to finally get to basic functionality.
I think the only thing I really use mine for at the moment is when I'm coming in at night, just to let me see shit. That's all I ever use it for.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Yep. Second you said, second you started there, I was, that's what I'm the same.
That's it. Yeah.
But in the Star Citizen Live, you got that impression of that as I were talking. How do you detect the jump point at the transient jump points? And you could see Rick was really wanting to go further and explain, all of that stuff, the interests, the different styles of scanning, the different types of scanning, what you can find. Last 5 minutes or so, or what, like 10 minutes, in the last 10 minutes or so of that episode, it's worth having a look at it if you are interested in scanning. But yeah,
I think it was about 52 minutes in. There are, as Space Tomato pointed out, there was time codes in the very first top pin comment.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like the second last one in the latest. What is it? I'm out of brain fart. Star Citizen Live about jump points. It was a Q&A on jump points. Yep. All right, so I think the last one that we've heard probably the most in more recent years would be bounty hunting. And I don't know about you two, but when I think of bounty hunting, I kind of go outside the ship a little bit on this one, more so than the previous two. And I think it becomes a more vehicle and specifically on foot affair. Because in the past, Algared, they talked about, and I don't know if you've heard this Space or not, so that's why I said Algared. They talked about being on foot and actually being able to like scan people's faces and shit and see details about them and stuff like that. And we've seen UI leaks over the years where you could do things to that effect, scan people and get details on them and see if they're a known criminal or whatever. Kind of like if you've ever seen Guardians of the Galaxy, where they had Groot and I'm going to butcher the guy's name there, the raccoon, and they were scanning people to see if they were criminals or not ever. Do you know what I'm talking about in the movie there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that type of thing, and that's where I start to go scanning for bounty hunting. Now, I don't know if you guys, what is scanning with bounty hunting for you two?
Yeah, part of.
Well, we kind of.
Go on.
Well, we saw a lot of it at CitizenCon last year. just giving target information when you're scanning. This is in the last monthly report. They talked about how they were fine-tuning the amount of info that would pop up for you if you're scanning, but I'm sure we'll have certain scanners that give more information than others when it comes to things like figuring out what somebody's reputation is or what kind of crimes they've committed and which factions are after them. Maybe how expensive their bounty is. There's a lot of options they have when it comes to scanning and that kind of stuff. And I do think that this really builds into the reputation system being more relied on rather than just the crime stat system for figuring out who's bad and who's not. Because right now you basically just have blue versus red. Somebody's either evil or they're not.
You just made me think of it again. The crime system is a data system. Like, it's just showing me, sorry, I keep talking about this combination of gameplay, and I just keep seeing it everywhere I go now, and I can't unsee it. Almost every gameplay is going to be touched by some other form of gameplay. It is not just medical scanning. It's not plain Jane anymore. It is, and every ship, or take a ship as an example, you can literally see that every ship is going to kind of have 2 or 3 different gameplays within it. But then you take a different medical ship, it will be slightly different again and have different tie-ins again.
Have different nuances and
things. They're all going to have their own little nuances in place, and it makes it really deep and interesting. It came about, the episode we did was I saw Voidyvids talking. He was on his live stream, and he kind of had this penny drop moment when he realized cargo was just going to touch everything in the game, and he just ranted, but in a good way, for like 15 minutes, and it was just like he had an epiphany, and it was just really interesting to see someone else see something that me and Algared had seen years ago. So
the other thing, picking up what Space was talking about in terms of using, scanning people with a mobiGlas, is, and I'm sure you'll remember this, way back in probably 2014, 2015, they talked about different types of mobiGlas as well. So, literally you'd use your mobiGlas to scan someone and get the details on them, and then go that. And so that, and I was thinking, that kind of is very similar. It's a human-sized version of the scanning modularity and the utility mounts that we get on ships, and that can kind of add things as well. So it's not just radars and scanners, but there's also those things that enhance, detract, duplicate the abilities as well. And so when it comes to explorer ships, like you've got a Corsair. Corsair's explorer ship, it's got the explorer scanners on it. It's the same size as a Connie Aquila, which has got the scanners on it, but then the Aquila's got the addition of 2 utility mounts that then
even that example is a really good one. So let's take the Aquila and the Corsair. While they might share one scanner in similarity, the Aquila's probably more tailored at traditional exploration, like the jump point or something like that. But you'd have to imagine that the Corsair, and I know people are going to cringing as I say this, but it's probably designed to penetrate certain ship holes and stuff like that, to find the contents of ships, right? And kind of like they implied what you were saying on the live episode, there are different types of scanners for different jobs, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think, as I said to you guys earlier too, it's becoming clear to me now certain components in ships have an internal component and an external component. And that's why we heard about, the last time you and I kind of talked about this, Algared, on an episode, we talked about radars and scanners and what they were. And I now understand what I think there is. One's the external, that's on the outside of the ship, and the one's on the internal. And the other one that we know about, that I would give you the example of, that I think is fitting, is the emitters they talked about when the Raelian concept went up, which is essentially shields on the outside, and then shield component on the inside is the physical box. So I'd have to assume with scanners and radar, scanners is kind of like the computer part that's on the inside, and the radar's like the dish on the outside. Unless you guys think differently. But I'd like to put that to you just briefly.
Yeah, I don't know. I
it is a
don't know how they're going to do the different components.
Yeah, I'm asking you to speculate. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. But I'd have to give it a little more thought to go deep. But it doesn't sound beyond the pale. It sounds logical.
Okay. Is there any other gameplays you kind of want to hit on? Because I'm sure there's a few others we can do on here if you want to, or do you want to kind of wrap it up here? Because I think I'm at the end of my notes, so to speak. So is there any other gameplays? I guess mining and industry would be a really obvious one. And I think the other one would be combat. We already know there's like 3 or 4 different combat scanners, like cross-section, like how the missiles and torpedoes work. They have different missiles that scan in different ways. So we already know based on those that there's different combat ones. And then, as I said, different mining resources, because I reckon, well, you guys tell me this, I reckon you could get scanners that are more tailored to specific materials. So, for example, a scanner for salvage would be different from a scanner to mining, because you are looking for slightly different resources. You're essentially looking for process resources with a salvage. You know, like you're looking for ships and other little things that tell you that it's salvage. Where, say you're just looking for iron. Process iron is different. It's got a different chemical makeup to raw iron. Yeah.
So the scanners will pick up the radar signatures, and everything's got a radar signature, but then it's going to depend on how your system is specific things your system is tuned to detect.
Yeah.
And so every ship can find it, but others are going to be better at finding it than others as it goes down the line. So,
well, even like you said about the Aquila Algared, or you could take the Terrapin. If you're out and you've got like your general scanner, it's going, I found a shitload of iron. And then all of a sudden you switch to your other scanner and you're using because you want to do mining that day. When you then scan the same iron here and it goes, no, I can't detect this, that means that it's probably for salvage. You know, that process of elimination thing.
It gives you that idea of picking up the different things. And so, different scanners for different purposes. And I think
and it'll be the same thing in the combat one by using different ones. You know, you might be able to go, oh, there's a ship over there, but then changing to a different scanner can help you narrow it down. Is it a military ship?
And even if we can swap out the scanner module and take a mining scanner or a salvage scanner or a exploration scanner and put that on our ships. Those ships with the utility mounts that can have different functionality are going to be better than just those ships with one default scanning system. And so those exploration ships or those ships with those utility mounts are going to be better at the task than, say, another ship. So I would expect MSR, in some sense, would be better than, say, a Herald, because it's got the utility mount that it can use to enhance its abilities.
Yeah, and again, we haven't got into things like what's it, ADS and stuff like that, which to me sounds like a passive system versus where you send out a ping and it goes further and stuff like that. So I think almost all ships will have that passive system, which is in like a, what is it now at the moment, 20-25 kilometer radius. But then to scan beyond that, you'll probably need a dedicated radar to go outside that area. And it also means, like, you can start to see why ships like Heralds and stuff like that are under the Drake banner, because they can help them find ships that they wouldn't be able to find just on more passive scans. So it's going to be really interesting, because I think you'll start to see that, look, just taking pirate fleets as an example, you'll have your dedicated explorer to find the other ships, like the Corsair, for example. Like a Corsair would be running with a bunch of Buccaneers as an example, because the Buccaneers go in and do the grunt work, but they don't have the radar on the physical outside of the ship to actually send out the pulse, so to speak. They can only do it passively around them. But yeah, time will tell. And that's me speculating there, but there has to be a reason to have them on the inside and on the outside, and we obviously know not all ships have those utility mounts. So again, I'm just interested to see where that goes as we move into, and I don't think that'll even be in Tier 0 towards the end of the year.
Even as Rick said,
Tier 0.
Citizen Live, we don't have any different scanners at the moment. We don't have any different radars at the moment.
Yeah.
We won't even have transient jump points in 4.0.
Well, I'll put that back to you guys then. What do you think Tier 0 is going to be? Because my brain goes to ships that have the passive stuff, and then ships that have the passive plus the stuff outside, and I think that would be Tier 0. So all of a sudden there's a clear delineation between who are the explorers and what's the difference between an explorer ship and a normal ship, and that their primary function is an external utility mount that allows them to apply a radar. Now I could be completely wrong on that, but that's kind of what I'm hearing, because all those explorer ships, they have things like that. You know, the MSR, the Heralds have got satellite dishes on the outside, and they're talking about radars, which is like radar dishes and stuff like that. You can physically see them on things like the Scout and stuff like that. So I think that's where they're going. Now, I could be wrong, but that's, I don't know. I put that back to you guys. And I know I'm asking you to speculate again, and I know sometimes you guys don't like doing that. But yeah, what's your where do you? Okay, I'll change it then. What do you think Tier 0 is essentially going to be towards the end of the year?
Well, I mean, I think it's Tier 1 at least at this point, because
yeah, okay.
we've had some form of scanning. I don't know, man. I don't know. I've made so many videos about scanning when they talk about updates, and I would hope at the very least we would just be able to detect things. Just let us detect things. Okay. And I mean, like, things universally, resources, points of interest. They don't even have to make specific scanners for this stuff. I just want to be able to detect and know what something is,
so you're saying
be able to save that data.
Find stuff and then put it back into categories and cut backwards.
Yeah, okay. Like, we've got the new star map, we've got markers we can place.
Yep. Okay.
Let us
find
just stuff. Like the most basic stuff.
All right, Algared, what about you? Do you kind of agree with Space?
I think that's where we'll go, mainly because based on what is here, you know, we're not going to have transient jump points in 4.0. We're only going to have the two-way traffic to Pyro. So anything that's doing the detection of jump points, which is really your exploration scanners, isn't going to be there. That's going to be later. So if you're looking at scanning, a development of scanning, where do you go? You're not looking at those specific scanners at that point. You're starting to look at what you can find, and I think the generic things make sense.
Yeah, you're kind of right now. Then I think about it, you've essentially got ships that you can find, mining nodes, salvage nodes, people, animals, maybe with like the copions, but that's about it. There's not much more.
Derelict ships.
Well, that's salvage and mining. But yeah, what we have in the game right now is about all you can look for. So you don't kind of really need much more beyond that, at least at these early stages anyway.
But I should be able to find a cave or a river, right?
I think you should be able to. Yeah, as you said, points of interest. Yeah.
No, you should. I would thought you should certainly be able to. You know, I could see them doing, because we've got mining, because we've salvage. I could see them bringing a mining, mining scan, one that identify the mining nodes or more, and ones that identify the wrecks more.
Well, even I'm just sitting here thinking about what Space said about like from and you said as a basics level, what would be really good for new players? I fly into Lawville, I've called for radar, I do a ping, and it actually points me to my landing pad. You know, things like that. Like you can. It's like it shows the whole hangar, and it like lights up this big box and goes, "That's where you're going." You know, like none of this little waypoints anymore. It just highlights the shit out of it. And think about the times where you fly into outposts and stuff like that, and you can't see the outpost. All falls under scanning now all of a sudden. So yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but that's just what I see. So yeah. All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. Space, what would you like to hear from people below in the comments? Is there anything specifically you would like them to kind of take away from this episode?
What do they want to find when exploring? What's the ideal exploration gameplay for you?
Yeah, because I think everyone's got a different interpretation of it. They really do. All right, Algared, what about yourself?
I think it mirrors Space, because you ask people what they want in exploration, and you'll get 50 different answers. Some people just want jump points. Some people want to find a jump point in the planet. Some people want to find the minerals on the planet. Some people want to find the points of interest. Some people want to find the cache of weapons if it's a Varanok left. All the critters, So there's so many different things that really amount to exploration. So what do you want to find? And
I think that kind of leads in my question too. I've kind of realized it's just at the end there talking is that it's probably going to come in a very layered system. You know, we're going to have the general stuff, and then they're going to start as the different gameplays come in. Essentially, you know, having scanning and mining in, they're probably going to be the first main two we get in, besides the general stuff. So you know, they bring in pick profession, and it essentially adds another layer to the scanning, or even in some cases a different type of scanner and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well,
and I think the last comment I'll ask is, do you think that there has to be a difference between that sets Explorer ships apart from normal ships? And I think that's got to be, they've got to make that more evident somehow. And the only thing I can think of is internal versus external components. But yeah, Algared, you gonna say?
yeah, I think as they develop the scanners, we'll certainly see, the mining ships will get their radars more geared towards, as they start tweaking it and putting in the defaults, but they'll change the defaults, and then down the track may give us the ability to swap those radars out to choose what we're having. But I see it's being a layered system as well, and bring in as they bring more stuff online, and yeah.
All right, Space, where can people find you on the interwebs? Oh, we lost your Space? I think we lost him again.
Yep,
No?
lost him again.
He can't hear us? Okay. You can find Space Tomato at Space Tomato Gaming on YouTube, Twitch. You can find him on Space Tomato 2. I think he's even now
just lost connection.
He's even got his pizza streams going up now, don't you? That's all right.
Yep.
What was that new channel that you and It's Tomato were doing with the pizza stream recently?
The tomatoes, yeah, it's more of a personal kind of.
Yeah, it's still fun.
Yeah.
And you, but I got the right channels right, yeah? Space Tomato Gaming, and then Space Tomato 2. And
Space Tomato Plays is where we're going to start putting up more gameplay soon.
Okay.
So
4 channels.
It's a full garden.
Yeah,
it's a full garden.
The empire is growing. Yeah, they're taking over slowly. But anyway, yeah. All right. Right. And then for us, we've got. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and thank you to everyone that went an extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. I'm looking forward to meeting you in the flesh soon, Space. Hopefully at CitizenCon. You find out soon, don't you, if you can go or not? I believe, yeah.
We will not be going to CitizenCon.
Oh.
Yeah, I made that call.
Damn. Okay.
Just between it's Star Citizen's been slow this summer, so we are pulling back our plans a little bit, and
well, you know what?
We've got more important things to focus on.
I might talk to you after the show then. All right.
Yeah, we might have a job.
We may have a job for you, sir. And it will be worth your while. And I'll explain more in a minute. All right.
We got a job for you.
Yeah. All right. With that, then, he's been Space Tomato. He's been Algared. I had to do the angle.
Oh, damn it.
See, you got it wrong. See, that's why I had to think of it. That's what I did.
He's an Execute. That's Space Tomato, and we're out of here. Take care.
Right. See you, citizens.
That's why you put me in the top, wasn't it?
Just 100%.